Welcome to the Hypervoice. I'm your host, Stephen Morioka, and today I'm joined by Alex Underhill.
Alola, Stephen.
Alola, and also joining us today is Randy Kwa.
Hey, Stephen.
Welcome, Randy. Glad to have you on here. This is a show all about Pokemon's Video Game Championship Series, also known as VGC for short. We're going to talk about a few different topics today. We're going to start off with the Japan Cup, or what was it called? The Japan Battle Championship Series? I don't remember the long
It's still
name
Japan
they had.
Cup right now.
It's still Japan Cup? Alright.
The Wi-Fi
I'll
tournament
take
is
it.
still Japan Cup.
Okay, but we're going to start off with Japan Cup. It is, at the time of recording, it is currently ongoing. And we have, a few perspectives, and we're hoping Randy will share some of these with us. And, it's exciting that they get to do 5 different, sort of consecutive tournaments in a row. But Randy, you know a little bit more about this than I do, so go ahead, please.
Sure. Let's see. The Japan Cup this year, it's here for the qualifications for the World Championships. It's the preliminary qualifiers is still, once again, a Wi-Fi tournament. However, what's changed from previous years is that it's a series of 5 Wi-Fi tournaments. And how it works is that they play in up to 5 tournaments, and and in the end, and their best 3 scores will be pooled. Well, the top, I think, 50 or so players will reach nationals, where they'll play in nationals, then get their invites to Worlds.
So did you say that the top 3 scores were going to be pooled together?
Yes, they play
really?
5 tournaments. They can play up to 5 tournaments, and their 3 best scores are the ones that will be chosen, and for their
your best bet's probably to be playing in all of them, but you don't necessarily have to.
Yeah. However, as you know, Japan, when it comes to these Wi-Fi tournaments, Japan tends to be super, super serious about it. So not only are people probably going to play in all 5 tournaments, they're going to be playing each tournament multiple times. So you may have people playing maybe like their main card and an alternate card in the tournament. So they're already playing this first, I believe it's the first one of 5 that's gone on so far. And they've already played it twice to try to get a good score.
So, from what I've been seeing on Twitter from the 2 Americans that I know that are in the tournament is Giovanni Costa and then one of the Liebert brothers, or Liebert. I believe it's not Chase. I think it's Chase's brother.
Colton,
yes. I believe both of them are playing in Japan Cup, and what they said, at least on that I saw on Twitter, is that they played 20 battles, and I think 20 battles only.
Yeah. It seems like you can only play for each set of tournaments 20 battles. Well, I don't think the ruling was entirely clear at the start before when they initially announced Japan Cup, but as they started playing now, they have 20 battles. So people are trying to go for obviously a 20-0 record as many times as they can. But you can't really take any of your games for granted in Japan Cup, so even like you're starting your first games, and you're gonna have some competition. And so going 20-0 is still going to be a pretty difficult task.
I wonder if they're happier to have less games to play and playing only 20 per tournament, or if they would much rather have the 45. Playing less games is obviously going to be less exhausting and you had less pressure to go undefeated, but
it's a bit hard to say because they have to play less games, and yet they have to play even more games because this is like 5 tournaments spanning over about a month's period of time.
Yeah, so if you have some of the players running 2 carts, then they're playing 40 games for each tournament. But I actually don't mind this, other than the surprise factor in it, is having the tournament only allowing you to play 20 battles entirely, over the 3-day spans. And because they're so closely bunched together, I think it makes a lot more sense to undergo that kind of structure rather than the 15 per day. So you don't necessarily have to be playing every single day like they almost seem like they wanted you to. Rather, you can set your 20 battles for one day or split them up. You could do this, in the traditional 45 game system, but I feel like this will work out a lot better for them, just in terms of timing.
I think so too. I think people were, when it was announced, they were worried about having to like pretty much waste all their weekends for an entire month playing in Japan Cup. Although I guess some of those aren't even on. Some of the tournaments don't even happen on a weekend. Some of them are in the middle of the week. So people were a little bit panicked about their scheduling, I think. So maybe 20 battles is a little bit beneficial, aside from having to play multiple cards.
Have you guys seen sometimes there are premier challenges held on weekdays, not even during holiday weeks? Those are the weirdest things. I feel like almost what's happening with these Wi-Fi tournaments.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I had a friend who had a premiere challenge like on a Wednesday, and he was like telling me on Tuesday that he was preparing for it, and I was like, "What? Why do you mean you have a premiere challenge tomorrow? That's just not how it works. You can't do that." But apparently you can.
Right. What throws me off with that especially is just no. Usually they're not during holiday breaks. Some of them are just randomly. Here's a weekday. We're gonna hold a tournament. But I think we're safe to say we can move on from Japan Cup. They have 20 battles for each tournament, for each of their 5 tournaments. And, we'll see what happens with those results. And if we do we'll probably get to end up seeing results at some point, with who qualifies. And then we'll get to see their nationals eventually, which will be very exciting for everyone who's invested into VGC 2017. But we're going to move on to our next topic, which is sportsmanship in the game in Pokemon. And I feel like this is a very important topic to talk about, simply because this isn't really anything that no one's really talks about too much. It's just kind of hidden under the rug stuff where these are kind of expectations, or I guess we're kind of going to go over some of our expectations for what good sportsmanship should be like in the game. And then we probably have some very entertaining stories about poor sportsmanship. So we're gonna start by talking about just sportsmanship in general in the game. So what do you guys think? What it should be in general?
I would say a general description of sportsmanship is treating your opponent with respect and making sure that, the end goal, both of you are there to have a fun time. And while one player is going to be slightly disappointed with a loss, and, we all try to win, you still want both players to walk away from the match satisfied and happy with how things had gone and how the matchup with their, I guess, the relation to their opponent, they want to walk away feeling all right, maybe hopefully made a friend. That's a nice goal to set for yourself, is to, make friends when you're playing Pokemon, and also just, treat them with respect.
One question I may have about how the sportsmanship in the end of the battle is, if you end up in a battle where one person got really lucky, he won the battle, while the other person he felt like he should have won this and have the game stolen away from him. And as a winner, how should you act to the person who just lost? Sometimes they don't necessarily feel in the mood to shake your hand or say GG or whatever.
That is a tough situation to be in, and I feel like that you can go both ways with it, because some people go and say "Oh, I'm sorry that happened," and some people would like to hear that, be like, "Well, you're acknowledging that you got lucky. That maybe things could have been different if the game hadn't gone that way, the RNG." And some people will respect you for that. However, there are some people who, are upset that they lost and they don't want your sympathy. They're just like, well, the game is just cruel to me and I'm just going to be upset no matter what. And so then saying sorry just doesn't really help the situation. So it's almost like a case by case basis. But
do you feel like you should say GG or say sorry regardless of the situation? Or do you think you should try to look into it and make a call or something of whether you should?
I think I agree with you saying the make a call situation. Basically, for any game in general, I kind of follow this approach that I had learned from Gavin, actually, and I might have mentioned it on the show before. But afterwards, if you had won, you wait until your opponent says GG. And this is mostly what I'm thinking about when I'm playing online. because it's a little different in person. But if your opponent says GG, then you reciprocate it if you're the winner. And if you're the loser, it's kind of up to you. You know, if you are really upset with how the game went, you just want to get out of there and be done with Pokemon, then don't say GG. I'm typically going to say GG even if I lose, but when I'm winning, I'm a little bit more careful about it because, you know, the opponent might be disappointed with their own play, disappointed with the RNG, and so saying GG, even though it's generally referred to as the respectful thing, sometimes can rub salt in the wound, and so I play it a little carefully.
See, while I understand that notion where you're coming from, I disagree with you there that with being it up to the loser to say GG after to reciprocate, you know, whether the loss was hexy or not, or if they're upset. I feel like if you're not responding, that's being a poor sport.
That's your opinion on it? All right.
Yeah, so it's fine if, you know, the winner says GG, stuff like that, and, you know, if your opponent doesn't say anything, then I feel like they're not being extremely respectful of you, because it's not like your opponent did anything to you that was in their control, other than they chose a certain move or whatever it be. But most of the times those RNG factors aren't necessarily fully in their control. So I don't see that. Yeah, I guess it is my opinion, but I don't think that by not saying GG, you're being a poor sport. But I guess in terms of that, with GG, handshakes, I kind of want to go over, you know, maybe a lighter thing about this is when you get to a match to play an opponent, and, you know, we do handshakes typically to introduce ourselves, right? You know, that's just the normal, conventional thing to do. And I just have a question for you guys: is how many is too many? So in my mind, usually. So for some of the germaphobes out there and people who don't necessarily like shaking hands too much, and I know there are a bunch of people out there because I have to shake all these people's hands all the time, but there is, you know, I guess kind of almost like a protocol everyone goes through. So if you do not know your opponent, you know, obviously you should at least introduce yourselves that way and shake hands. I feel like, so that would be one for me if I'm playing a new player. So that's one. You have good luck for game one, with a potential handshake there. That's two. Good game for game one. Good luck for game two. Good game for game two. That's five already. If you go to game three, you get another two potentially. So there's 5 to 7 handshakes in there, and I feel like 5 is too much. Do you think it's too much?
I don't think it's too much. I think that's about right. I think if you
really?
If you have reasons to go beyond that, then it might be too much.
What? Where are we going with this?
The middle of the game, like, oh, good play, put her there.
Good play, handshake.
I would say I do think it's a little too much, but I don't know. Like, for a best of 3, I typically, you know, maybe do the introduction handshake as I'm sitting down, and then do one, you know, before the game. Good luck. However, I normally wait until the very end of the set to do a good game, good set kind of handshake, and like we're done here. I normally go with, I guess, the 2 to 3 option. Not because I'm like afraid of touching my opponent's hands. If they go for the handshake before game 1 and game 2 and game 3, and then afterwards as well, I will reciprocate and shake hands. I normally don't initiate that many handshakes. I just like to start the set with a handshake, end that set with a handshake, and maybe one introduction handshake.
I don't think I give it too much thought on how many handshakes I give to people.
You know, that's what we're here for, though,
yeah,
Randy. We need you to give thought to it.
Usually somewhere between what you say, Alex, and what Steven says. Somewhere in between there. Well, it's either usually what Alex says or what Steven says. I don't think I do like 5 handshakes. Unless it's like...
Yeah, I feel like if you add the good luck handshakes in there, then you're getting extra out of your opponent, I guess. But generally, you know, if you do not shake hands for the good luck portions, you know, right before you start one of the games, you know, I'm okay with that. You know, if nobody says it, that's fine. If you don't say it back, that's fine, because, you know, luck's this crazy element in the game. Another thing is, for if your opponent reaches out to shake your hand, you know, they put their hand there, do not just brush that aside, or do not ignore them for that. Just shake their hand regardless of what's happening. I actually have a story about this, and I guess this kind of falls into a poor sportsmanship example. And generally, we're not going to name names when we provide some of these stories, But for this one, you can find this on stream. This is Gavin Michaels versus Arash Omadi, Worlds 2014. The first round, so first round of that tournament, they're on stream, right? And I'm in the stands or the seats because I did not qualify for Worlds that year, and I'm there at Worlds able to watch them play and see their interactions at the table. And they go into, they do their typical handshakes for the start of the match in game was 1 and 2, but then Arash had lost game 2, I believe. I believe this is the correct order. And when we get to game 3, Gavin reaches or extends his hand to shake Arash's hand and say good luck. So Gavin's hand is just hanging out there, and Arash does nothing. And that just looks so bad, in my opinion, when you just ignore your opponent like that. And especially on stream and at Worlds, and you are the defending world champion.
You both end up looking like fools in that situation where the person left hanging is like, well, like my hand's just here. And then the other person is just, looking a little bit, I don't know, just, I guess, poor sportsmanship like we said. And it's, I would say that, if your opponent puts out their hand, yeah, like you said, you should definitely reciprocate. I have a story about it as well that I was personally involved in. I'm back at Collinsville in 2016. I had faced someone and Smeargle had gotten a lot of moody boosts, and I ended up losing largely because of it. And afterwards, my opponent just went for the handshake, and I was just like, I'm sorry, man. I just don't feel like so good about that set or something like that, or about the match, because it was best of one. And so I just didn't shake their hand, and I was just because I was really salty and upset about the RNG. And I remember the second day of the tournament, I was sitting down watching some matches, and I saw my opponent sitting like a seat or two away from me, and I ended up going over to him, and I was like apologizing, and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry about that. Like, that was really just not cool. I'm sorry that I didn't shake your hand. I just was really upset about the match, and my opponent was very understanding, so that was really nice. But if you don't end up like respecting your opponent that way, at least in my opinion, I ended up regretting it, and I just didn't feel so good about my my self-respect, and so I wanted to really apologize for it. But yeah, I think if your opponent goes for a handshake, you should definitely reciprocate.
Yeah, Alex, shame. Did you at least say good game?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I was just like, yeah, like I was just a really salty guy. Real salty guy.
Okay, well, yeah, things can get very heated in Pokemon, a lot more heated than we would expect, or maybe it is just as heated as we would expect, but things can get really heated. Randy, do you have any stories, whether you were personally involved or any examples you can think of?
About shaking hands?
No, this doesn't have to go with handshakes, but just like sportsmanship.
I had one time at last year at Worlds, also around round 4, where my opponent just stormed off in the middle of battle, at the very end of game 3, since he lost. And we were already X2 at the moment, so he was eliminated. He said some not so friendly words, then stormed off.
Was it as a result of RNG, or was he just disappointed in his play? And did he take his DS with?
He took his DS with him. He didn't actually forfeit, so I was left with left.
Oh, that's why you said
connection.
middle of battle.
But I don't think it was this. I can't remember exactly if it was due to like moody boosts or whatever. I just know that I think it was that I revealed late in the game that I'm Scarf Smeargle. Yeah, I think it was that I revealed late in game 3 that I was Scarf Smeargle and a hippo.
Okay, and your opponent is storming off at the end of that match, not giving you, signing the slip or whatever, and then finishing, properly.
Did not hit forfeit, just took his DS, ran, and just stormed off.
And how did this make you feel?
Kind of confused about him getting so angry about it, because it is 2016, and you should be well aware of all the things that are going on that can cause this sort of thing in 2016.
And you're facing Randy Qua.
But yeah, it felt kind of like I felt kind of confused about the situation. And it's like, why? Like during as the matches progressed, he won convincingly game 1. He lost game 2, and he was already showing signs signs of like him being agitated and being not very happy about it. And in game 3, he just like blew steam and left. So I'm not too sure whether I feel like it felt like I was being disrespected a bit, and I guess that's what it came down to. So I guess that's why he's thrown off, is like you kind of have this serves you right kind of feel, but it's just a bit of a confusing situation to me.
Right, very understandable, and I think this is kind of the whole point of why we're talking about this, is to be mindful and show respect to all of your opponents, no matter what happens in the matches. If all the games are there aren't outside influences. So I guess so there's another thing we could talk about here, which is if you think your opponent was blatantly cheating in whatever manner, then that's a whole different story. But if your game was just the game being itself, then don't be a sore loser. Please just be respectful and mindful of your opponents, because more than likely, chances are is you're going to be stuck in the same venue for most of the day or weekend, depending on what tournament it is. So just be very mindful of that. There's some other examples I can think of that aren't necessarily involved with any of the three of us, but here are some other stories, or I guess examples that I can share here. One was, there was an opponent who, I'm assuming they got hexed out, and I believe I heard this from Alex or someone else, but somebody literally ripped their 3DS in half in the middle of a match playing someone. Obviously they probably were going to lose, and then they probably were done for the rest of the day as well. So that's probably not a good that's probably not a good thing for their opponent. Another one is, I remember someone, again, this is through word of mouth, is that someone got up out of their chair, kind of did the slide back from those chairs that you're sitting in. They slid back and then got up and threw their chair to the side, right? It didn't end up hitting anyone, but they just tossed their chair to the side. And, if you're someone's opponent, that kind of makes you freak out a bit. Like, people gotta watch their tempers. Like, I hate hearing about those kind of things.
Yeah, I had an instance at a recent tournament where a player was just cursing me out a bunch because I had gotten a fair amount of luck to turn the set around and ended up winning it. And it's very uncomfortable to be on the other side of. And I was just telling that person, like, this isn't on me. Like, it's not in my control. I'm just playing to the only way I could win the game, which is I was using discharge, and I was trying to get paralysis because that was the only way I could bring the game back. And they were like, yeah, cursing out. And then I was like, this isn't my fault. Like, this is Pokemon. This is what happens. You sign up for this when you play the game. And, like when you get hacked out by someone or you have poor luck, whether it's one way or the other, and it's out of your control, be respectful about it. Respect that it's not on your opponent. Your opponent is not the one who caused this to happen. You are both, like I said, playing Pokemon. You signed up for this. You should expect luck to happen in these games. And so, react accordingly, take it with a grain of salt, and, just don't pin it on them. Don't villainize your opponent for getting good luck against you, because it really isn't their fault. It's just the game.
Right. I agree with you with some of those hex-filled moments, that it is not your it's not your fault. It's the game, producing the result you're going for, and it's out of your control after you select the move. But do you almost feel like it's dangerous to say that to them? Like, hey, this isn't my fault. Because I almost feel like it feels like an insult. And do you feel like that's dangerous to say?
It depends on the person. It depends on how close you are with them. This person I had known, and so and I had seen this happen before, and so I was like, calm down. You don't want to make a scene. And I was just telling them, because we are both familiar with each other, and so I was saying, just take it easy. That you don't you don't hate me right now, because this is just the game. It's just Pokemon. So it's really, again, another one of those case by case things where if you're not familiar with the person and then they're on the verge of maybe doing something violent, maybe try to back off, just stay quiet, let them get it out of their system. But, yeah, again, another case-by-case thing.
I think it could be a bit dangerous to be saying to people, because in some senses is when when you're in those situations, you play towards your outs, right? And if your out is taking that 10% chance, it is 10% you do have the choice of not going for your 10% chance of just losing, but you go for that because that's your out to win the battle. So, in a sense, it is sort of your fault that you went for the move, but the luck is but ultimately it's luck that decides whether you're actually going to win from that or not.
Well, the way I like to look at it in that situation is your opponent didn't have the game guaranteed wrapped up.
Yeah.
And whether these opportunities are, 10%, 3%, 1%, or even less, your opponent didn't have the game 100% sealed up. If it's just, one Pokemon versus one and your Pokemon's faster and guaranteed to KO, that's a guaranteed win as long as you click the right button. However, if you're in a situation where maybe you need to hit a Draco Meteor to win the game and you miss it and lose, maybe you could have played the game differently to have a more guaranteed win condition. And so that's where I say it's not really your fault, is if there is a chance that your opponent can come back through luck, then you didn't exactly wrap up the game perfectly.
Yeah. This usually also gets brought up in past battles in the case of, Swagger.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a different case. That's true.
1v1 endgame, just hit the Swagger button.
Yeah, I think that's still another case of playing your outs, and while you might get upset that a lot of the game was a coin flip at that point, or a slightly weighted coin flip in past formats, they had it on their moveset. It was a tool that they had available to them to use in a situation like this.
Right. I think it just takes just in terms of progressing through, being a good sport, and also just understanding that hacks is part of the game has a great deal to do with your maturity and how well you can take your losses in playing the game, especially when some of those luck moments happen to you. And I think, the thing to take away from all of this is that sportsmanship is something that's very important to me. Just playing the game for all these years, it's something I've noticed in just improvement in myself, in my brother, who I've been, watching since the start as well. So just seeing the progression in myself and my brother. And Randy, you and I have both been around since the beginning. We've seen a lot of players.
2005, guys. Long time.
Yeah, long time. We've both been here both been in the, this active competitive Pokemon scene for a while. We've seen different players come and go. We've seen players mature, and we know when newer players come into the scene and when they don't. I think we can easily pick out when they don't understand some of the, finer nuances of understanding the game from some of those perspectives of just, hey, it was luck, or, those kinds of things. It's really interesting just to see some of these new players come and go, and see all the different personalities that we get in this game. Because some people have better tempers than others.
It also feels like some people have really hot tempers, yet are also still able to play the game really well and do well in tournaments. And so it's kind of interesting how some people can actually be kind of hot tempered or losing a battle, but are able to quickly cool themselves down and maintain focus for future games.
Those people who end up doing well with hot tempers, then as they're succeeding, more attention is drawn to them, and that's where you kind of start to see people maybe trying to correct them or just warn them about their reactions and how they might be perceived. And so that's why it's not a huge thing that you see all over the place at the high level for VGC players, is a ton of people at the top with poor sportsmanship. At that point, you learn that if you want to help grow the game, you gotta look like a respectable player, and also just with a lot of eyes on you, you want people to respect yourself. And so I guess that would be the important takeaway from there. And I think just in general, anyone, whether you're a top player or not, if you want to kind of welcome newer players to the scene, you want to, be a good role model and, show good sportsmanship so that it's more welcoming to the newer players.
Right, and I'm not saying that anyone has to change their attitudes in terms of their own personalities just to fit this mold of, hey, I'm being a good person here. You just show respect to your opponents. That's all I'm really asking for in seeing some of these players play. And I guess there's one more thing I wanted to ask you guys about. We all know how Swiss can, with the resistance, can be a train wreck. And one of the reasons at the end of each match that we do say for example that we would wish our opponents good luck the rest of the tournament. One, I feel like it's, just a good thing to do. Respectable thing that you don't have to do it. Another thing is you actually want them to because you do care about how they're doing the rest of the tournament to help you in case you need the resistance factor. So I kind of wanted to ask you guys about whether so I've caught myself, I'm guilty of doing this. If I lose to an opponent, I generally leave it up to the winner to say it. If I lose to an opponent, I usually do not say good luck to them the rest of the tournament unless they say it first. And there's been some times where they didn't say anything and I didn't say anything and we just left. And, I feel bad about it, but I do feel like it's the responsibility of the winner to take care of that. What do you guys think?
I'm kind of in the opposite boat where you were with the GG, where I was saying GG was responsible for the winner. I say it regardless. Just like good luck in the rest of the tournament. I just, sometimes, especially with players that you aren't familiar with, like I'm going to do it to all my friends because I want my friends to do well, and also the resistance is a thing. But for the people that I'm not so familiar with, playing a complete stranger for the first time, it's also a really good kind of just a casual goodbye, like good luck in the rest of your matches, and then walk away from there. And I feel like it's a really good way to just wrap up the conversation, or just a good ending note so that you can move on and go talk to other people or whatever else you plan on doing.
Yeah, I tend to try to wish my opponent good luck at the end of the battle, I'll win or lose. Except for times when I'm busy trying to catch up writing notes or something, which then I might not notice they already left.
I remember back in 2016, maybe like partway through the season, I had taken up I think it was actually in the postseason, I had taken up the habit of waiting until team preview, and if they had Smeargle, I would say have fun, and if they didn't have Smeargle, I would say good luck, have fun. And I was mostly just doing this at small scale tournaments like Premier Challenges, and I was doing it with friends that knew the joke, and so people nearby, I would say have fun, and then they'd be like, oh, you must have a Smeargle, and they would know the running gag. But I did that mostly as a joke, but also partially because I always think it's funny when you at the beginning of the game say good luck and have fun to your opponent, and then at the end you ended up getting hacked out or something like that, and you look at it and you say well, you wished me luck at the beginning of the game, so it's almost your fault. And so I almost kind of took that to heart, and I'm well, at least if Smeargle hacks me, I didn't wish it good luck at the beginning. I didn't curse myself.
But do you at least have fun with that?
That's a good point. That comes down to if they wish me to have fun or not, and how much fun you consider 2016.
Oh, man.
But something I wanted to ask both of you guys about, because this is actually something big for me, and I brought it up, and it's, I think, somewhat sportsmanship related, and that's talking to your opponent. This mostly comes into play for myself at the smaller events like Premier Challenges, but it occasionally happens if I'm playing a friend or someone that does want to talk to me at a regional or above level event. But mostly I'm talking about the small scale events like Premier Challenges, where you're playing people that you've played several times over, you're friends with or familiar with. How do you feel about talking during the match? Because I will definitely talk to you during a match. I'll maybe be a bit more quiet during the move selection, but then as soon as both of us have locked in, I'll be oh, I went for this move. Did you counter that or something like that? Just casual conversation, no matter what it's about. What do you guys feel, or how do you guys feel about talking to your opponent during the match?
Randy, I'll let you respond first, but Alex just yaps and yaps and yaps. Like, I have to play in local events with him all the time. But,
if it's someone I know, like someone I've played against a few times, someone I'm more comfortable or casual with, if I'm okay talking to them, they're probably okay talking back to me. If it's someone like I don't really know, or if I'm trying to like focus a bit more, like I'm down 0-2, and I need to win out at the beach day 2, then I'm probably going to be a lot less talkative. If it's someone I don't know talking to me constantly, it gets kind of annoying. So I try to tune it out.
It's especially annoying when they don't get the message. Like, I try not to talk to people that I'm not familiar with, so I'm mostly doing this with friends, and if they stop responding, I'm going to stop talking. But, with people that I'm not familiar with and they, like, don't stop talking to you, like, I try to, like, pull out the headphone and then, like, respond to maybe what they said and then put it back in to show, like, oh, like, I can't hear you, so I'm focusing on the game. Do you guys both listen to music? Because I listen to music when I play, and I know Steven, I don't actually chat with much during the games because he has both headphones in, and so I'm like, well, I can't even talk to this guy anyway, even if he is my friend.
Well, there's a reason for that. It is my preference to prefer dead silence while playing from the chit chatter between opponents. So you're right. Both my headphones are usually in, and volume is max. Volume is just blasting its max, just so I cannot hear anything from anyone. Sometimes there are even situations where I've been going down to timer or a sudden death, or time's running out in this recent format, and the judges were saying something to me and I didn't hear them, which is bad. So they kind of had to tap me on the shoulder, which I appreciate that. But I am someone who prefers dead silence. I know there are a lot of other players who they kind of go both ways. They're either both ways, they have a mix, or some prefer, dead silent matches, others prefer they're a little more talkative. Yeah, I just like being with my own thoughts and thinking through the moves. I don't want distractions from opponents, spectators, whoever else is potentially involved with the match. I guess to go along with that, and you guys can feel free to keep responding about the talking to your opponent thing, but another thing is with the when you're on stream, and there's one DS that usually has the stream tech, what's it called? The cable or the cord
just
plugged
the
into
stream DS is what we call it. So
thank you. The stream DS has the volume jack is blocked off because they're using it for the computer or the stream that's capturing the game for the capture card.
Yeah.
And usually for most of those stream matches, one side will be able to have music and the other doesn't. And I always hate that when I don't get the music, because then it's just pure dead silence. And in the past we did have to do that. And since we moved to music, I like the music. And when I get in those situations, I hate it. I hate it so much when I don't have music. And, I don't like talking to my opponents too much. And, what am I going to do?
Is that why I usually see you on the opponent's side whenever you're on the main stream, on official streams? You're almost always on the opponent's side.
That actually happens to be coincidence. Like, I always prefer it. But, if I'm on the main DS, I'm kind of disappointed. I let the judges, usually the judges or the stream crew usually decide where we go. I think it depends if you have a downloadable version on your game or if you have a cartridge. So, for me, it's at least been by chance so far. I know when I played Franklin Lewis in the top 8 of the Collinsville Regional in 2016, we'd actually argued behind the curtains to see who gets the not stream DS to listen to music, right? And we both really wanted it. We both played rock paper scissors in the back, best of 3 for that. And ultimately, we decided with the judges, hey, we both really want this. I think it would be fair if neither of us got to wear our headphones. So we agreed on that. And if you go back to watch that match, you'll see neither of us have our headphones in. For the music at least. I think they make us wear the
noise cancelling headphones.
Sound cancelling headphones, yeah.
Well, you bring that up, Steven. That's basically what happened at Collinsville. Didn't matter what side I was on. I was actually not on the Stream DS the entire time, but I didn't get to listen to music. It was just white, loud static all day. And
they made you put those in, right?
What's that?
they made you put those in, right? Because I asked them, can I use my own headphones? They said, no, you got to put these in.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, you couldn't choose to listen to your own game, even if you were not on the Stream DS. And yeah, it was just white static. And, because of that, I was like, well, I might try to like talk to my opponent a little bit. But there was not a lot of conversation at Collinsville that weekend. I'd say the person I probably talked the most with was Nick. But yeah, just very loud white noise, like staticky, and it was pretty unpleasant because yeah, obviously the absence of music is a minus, but then also having a really distracting, annoying noise was also another minus.
It's unpleasant, but it's fair.
Yes, yeah, it's when it's even for both people, then you can't really hate the system that much, but yeah, I think we're getting a little bit carried away from sportsmanship, but that's all right. We can go on tangents.
No, it's okay. I'm thinking it's a fair thing to do. I do hope they're continuing this. I haven't seen much of the official streams recently. Randy, just really quickly here, are you someone who listens to music while playing?
I do not have headphones on when I'm playing. I just listen to the ambient noise of the venue.
All right.
Yeah, I guess you get to hear the sound effects of...
And if you're sitting too close to a hype match on a side TV, you hear all the cheering, too. Do you remember 2014 when I think it's Amarillo playing against Ashton Cox, and everyone's like heckling watching it on the side stream? Yeah, I get to hear all that.
I guess then it does have its pluses.
It's pretty distracting, but...
I guess so, yeah, you get to hear the crowd.
When the crowd gets that loud, it gets kind of distracting.
Yeah, it definitely can. I think the match in that situation you're describing was I think I heard it through YouTube because when it was happening live, I think it was playing, so I had music going. I didn't hear anything. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Max volume.
Exactly. Gotta tune out everybody else. But yeah, we kind of veered off from sportsmanship. Maybe there was something related at some point. It was the talking to your opponent part we were talking about.
Yeah. But maybe we should veer into the next subject before we wrap up and talk briefly about what's happening this coming weekend.
Oh, excellent. You're right. That is probably by the time this episode is live, the Sao Paulo International, the Latin America one, is probably happening already. Yeah, that's our third international. We're going to be heading into this, and then after that, we'll have just the North American International left. But just any thoughts going into the season so far and just this international?
Well, one thing worth noting is I believe this will have an official stream.
In Portuguese.
I believe that's what we did see. So definitely tune in and watch it if it isn't already passed and happened at the point that this is uploaded. But it was, if not, just check it out, check out the past broadcast, because there's going to be some high level play here, and we'll kind of see what the next big meta push, if there is one at all, coming up at this tournament. We're going to see have people come up with new strategies. We've seen a lot of Drifblim Lele come out. Is it going to continue to be successful, or has it got enough attention that people are going to start hard countering it? We'll have to see what really stands out at the top at this tournament. I'm going to try to catch some of it myself, since it should be a pretty light weekend Pokemon-wise, except for those people down in Brazil. So good luck to all the competitors there, and I definitely look forward to watching it.
I believe the stream will be in Portuguese for the official stream. I'm not sure if there's going to be like an English version of the stream or not.
So do they have an official Portuguese stream team?
I'm not sure. I don't really know who's going to be actually on the stream team. I just know that I've heard that the official stream is going to be in Portuguese.
It'd be cool if we had like the typical American stream team, but they all knew Portuguese, and they were just speaking a different language for us.
That would be interesting.
What if we could have some of our standard stream team down there, and then they have Portuguese translators talking over them.
Mm-hmm. And you just see them mouthing the words.
Yeah. It's like at Worlds when either Masuda comes on stage, or what's the director's name? The president's name?
Tsunekazu?
Yes, thank you. Tsunakazu comes on. They have their translators there. It'd be kind of fun to see something like that for these streams. But stream is good news. Good news to hear that the international is going to be streamed. Hopefully you guys will be able to tune in and watch some of it, or find the recaps of it in the VODs. You guys have anything else about Sao Paulo?
Not really. I think, we're just going to have to see what happens there, see what unfolds. There's probably going to be some more CP snowballing all the way to Indy and then onward to Worlds, but, it's not something that we didn't know about already.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, stuff snowballing, that's out of our control already. That's downhill.
It's already rolled way downhill.
See, for those people, they've climbed the mountain and now they're heading down. They're rolling down already. Whereas a lot of others, they have still a very much an uphill battle just to qualify.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are out there like with 900 CP, and I'm just like, I'm trying to get 500. Hold on, like, can you share some of that?
Oh yeah, I wonder how much fun that would be to share points.
What a chaotic system that would be.
Right. I mean, you get the split hotel costs and travel costs and fees. Why not split CP too? But finally, we have a tiny, small Roar of Time segment, which we're not going to devote an entire episode to this because this story is rather short, but is very entertaining for those of you who are familiar with this situation. So, Randy competed at 2011 U.S. Nationals, and he also made the top cut into the top 16.
But you need top 8 for Worlds that year.
Right. What Randy just mentioned is an important part of the story for 2011 U.S. Nationals is that you had to, in order to qualify for Worlds, there was no championship points back then. You had to essentially go to the Nationals and you had to make top 8. That was how you qualified for Worlds that year. And another important factor is this is still the, 6-week, 7-week regional cycle where there's regionals every weekend. You need to make top 16 at a regional to qualify for U.S. Nationals. And if you did not do that through regionals, the U.S. Nationals had an LCQ the day before, right?
There was an LCQ.
Randy, if there was a controversial moment or a controversial event or moment that happened during that tournament, do you remember what that is?
I do remember what that is. It had something to do with our good friend Deagle. Deagle Beagle.
Oh no. I'm excited
All
for
right.
this.
So this is the inside scoop because I've told nobody about this at all. Only my family knows about this story. So this is the great legendary story of Deagle's Fan 092. And so what this is you have Ryan Chambers, who's Deagle Beagle. He had qualified to Nationals, right? He made at least top 16 in the California Regional during that circuit season. So he had qualified for Nationals, but he did not have enough money to come out to play in it. And so he was stuck in California, and instead of playing in it, so that's some background here, which is important, as well as the qualification and all that stuff. And you have Matt Sabelden, Bears Fan 092, who goes to the last chance qualifier at Nationals, right? And he plays in it. You try to advance through those rounds, make it to the final. I think it ended up being 17 because they had a weird odd number, but you need to advance through those rounds to make it to play the next day at U.S. Nationals. That's how an LCQ works. And the person now standing next to in line was the opponent who beat him in the LCQ the day before that Friday. So why I'm bringing this up now is because everyone who was at that Nationals or hears stories about it knows how Mike Lezick, who is the predecessor to Play Pokemon Organized Play, the director, he was in charge of the video game before Chris Brown came around. And basically, if you don't know the story, is Bears Fan didn't make it through the LCQ, so he was not qualified for Nationals. But he tried to register as Deagle for Nationals because so Matt was trying to beat Ryan in the tournament, and so the opponent the player I was standing next to in the registration line that Saturday morning was the person who beat him in the LCQ the day before. And I also know who Ryan and Matt are, so that also helps me a little bit. I am actually the rat who told the judges, "Hey, that's not Ryan Chambers. I think this guy's an imposter."
Wait, you were the one who had it. You were the one who ran that Bears fan out.
Well, you guys will be able to see this in the thumbnail or the photos, but you can see in this picture that I'm standing in the registration line. I'm very close to Matt Sibelden, right?
Yep.
And I was overhearing him making this plan, right? So
Yep.
I was like, okay, this isn't cool. This is going to ruin the integrity of the tournament. I have to say something.
All right. I did not know this. This is so interesting. I remember hearing about the potential identity theft issue at 2011 from you at some point, just little bits and pieces of the story. I did not know that you were the one who informed the judges.
Also, with regards to him asking about whether he could impersonate Deagle or not. Deagle's brother Metabu was at nationals. I believe he did ask Metabu whether he would be okay with him doing that, and Metabu was okay with it. So that's why So he did sort of get permission to assume Deagle's name in and try to do this.
I remember reading online through the forums that, he'd either asked Metabu or he'd asked Ryan himself online, "Hey, is it okay if I go through with this?" But I was being very, what's the word I'm looking for? Vigilant, I guess. I was being very vigilant with this tournament and just, not wanting to ruin the integrity of it. And, imagine if he had actually done well. What would have happened later? Do you remember before we started the player meeting, Mike Lezik had to make that announcement? Like, hey, we just had someone try to impersonate someone at this tournament. If anyone else tries to do this ever again, you're going to be banned for life from Play Pokemon. Yeah, that was the major threat. But I was close enough in the line to Matt to overhear him making these plans. And I was thinking, you know what? I can't allow this to happen. I gotta let the judges know, or just let someone know, hey, we think something's up. And the guy who I mentioned, who I was standing next to, he agreed with me. He's like, hey, I played that guy yesterday and I beat him. Like, how's he registering for nationals right now? So Karma ended up working out for the tournament. Ended up qualifying for Worlds by making top 8. Losing to Wolf in the quarters, and I believe Randy
Wolf
also.
I lost to Wolf. That battle was not a good battle for me. Let's just leave it at that.
He kind of steamrolled me. Yeah, he was a brand new player. Like, when I first saw that too, I was like, I thought I was gonna get Randy, and then we just get this new regional winners guy who's brand new to the scene, and he just wins the whole thing. It was crazy, but I think what's the best part about the story with Eagles Fan 092, so Matt, right? Few years down the road, he holds these get-togethers at his house, and he invites everyone in the Chicago area to come over. This is like during Thanksgiving break or winter break, and come over, play video games, Smash Brothers. We'll play Pokemon, do some streaming stuff. So me and my brother and I go. And we both know the story of him. This is the first time I actually meet Matt in person, is at his house. And I do not tell him about this at all. The man invites me over to his house, and I say nothing about this story.
Must have been a silly time there, though, just knowing that the whole time you and your brother.
Yeah, it had been like a year or year and a half, or maybe 2 years removed already, so it wasn't too bad. But if you ever wanted to hear about this controversy, this story from way back then, this is no lie, I was the guy who ratted him out and put everyone in those situations and made Mike have to give that big announcement. But it was me. Had to do it. Yeah, pretty good photographic evidence too, if you don't believe. But that is the story from 2011 U.S. Nationals. Yeah, if you guys catch anything like that in the future, be sure to report it. Same thing with like anything else regarding that, good sportsmanship. But Matt, if you are listening, I did have to do it. It was the right thing to do from my perspective. And thinks, what if, Matt, do imagine if Matt did end up doing well, what could have happened? Just, skewing tournament results in that way.
Would have been an interesting kind of timeline there. Just what would have happened if someone who had impersonated another player actually ended up doing well enough at the tournament to be recognized for it. That's just a weird scenario that you don't ever imagine coming up at a tournament.
Or if he did well but got caught later in the tournament and it had to be DQ'd then. Like, he got caught before the tournament even started, so he didn't have to cause any trouble with all the tournament results, but he could have been caught later, and it actually could have caused him to receive more severe punishment if he actually did get caught later when the tournament was already started.
That's a good point. That is a good point that, by informing the judges, Steven might have saved Matt from being, banned from tournaments for life, That could have been a whole different story if he had actually gone and played in the tournament.
That's true. I mean, while it seems like I'm the hero, to Matt, I'm probably the villain for doing that. But I guess we'll never know really what would have happened if, we had allowed Matt to play. But nonetheless, thought it was a fun story to bring up because, I've never told it before. So great times in VGC's history.
Who's the hero? You decide.
Yeah, that's up to the listener to determine. All right, I guess. So we talked about Japan Cup, Sportsmanship, the International, and that story from 2011 U.S. Nationals. Do you guys have any closing thoughts for anything we've talked about?
I guess all I want to say is, if you have any questions or feedbacks or subjects you want to hear us talk about, please do let us know. And how should they let us know, Stephen? How should they let us know what they want us to talk about, what questions they have for us, or any feedback they want to give to us?
You're right. You can send an email to us at vgchypervoice@gmail.com. You can tweet at us, send us your questions, some feedback about the show. We're also on iTunes. You can leave us a review there and download the show from there. Randy Kwa, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I've known you for a very long time and been wanting to get you on for the longest time.
Thanks for having me on.
It would have been nicer if we got to talk a little more in-depth Pokemon with you, but, from what I've heard, you're not as invested as in this season.
Not this year, at least. Can't go to any of the ICs, so my invite prospects are pretty dead. No snowballs for me, that's for sure.
Or for many other people. But again, thanks for being on the show. We're glad to have you on. And I think that will be a wrap. Lastly, we're all on Twitter. You can find us all on there. Randy, where can people find you on Twitter?
R_inanimate.
Perfect. You guys can follow Randy there. Very, very well respected, well accomplished player. Definitely check him out. He's great, fantastic. Lastly, Alex, where can people follow you?
At Lexicon VGC, and we can find Stephen Morioka at
Super Morioka. Thanks for listening to the show. We very much appreciate it. We hope you've enjoyed it, and stay tuned for more of the Hyper Voice.